you very much for joining us today. My name is Marian White, and with me is my co-host for the last 50 to 100 years, Ken Bialo.
Good evening, Marian. How are you?
Great to see you.
Nice to see you. Very lovely to see you.
Thank you.
Yes.
I just wanted to remind viewers that you were mayor in the village of Larchmont for 4 years and served on the Board of Trustees for 11 years, plus many other committees and commissions, all unpaid. So thank you very much for that.
Yes.
And someone who is given at least an equal amount of time, unpaid time, is our favorite guest, Mike Wiener. Mike, you were on a trustee on the Larchmont Village Board for 5 years. You were the fire chief for 3 years, and you were on the volunteer fireman for what, like 31 years or something? In the village of Larchmont? Well, thank you. That's a lot of houses that you've saved. Thank you very much. So I always like to start out with something positive. And of course, what gives us so much new constant positive information or things to report is Furniture Share House, of which you're directly involved. And can you report on March 18th, they had the Mamaroneck High School annual furniture drive.
Yes.
How was it?
Rainy.
Did
Cold.
Windy. Did that stop people?
I don't know if it stopped people, but it certainly reduced the flow.
Well, was it fairly good though?
Yeah, it was okay. Good.
Okay. Well, it's just so nice because it, as I understand, there is a Furniture Share House club at Mamaroneck High School, and they're the one that sponsors this each year and get the cooperation of the rest of the school.
They did. Leslie Gorwood is the engineering force behind this club. She is mom of one of Matthew's friends from many years ago.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, and I just wanted to read, they sent out an email recently that's a letter from someone that was a furniture recipient at Furniture Share House. Dear Furniture Share House, I'm so happy now that you have helped me. Before coming to you, I only had a bed on the floor, a small desk that was falling apart, and a bookshelf in my apartment. Oh, and 2 folding chairs for me and my friends to sit on. Now I have a beautiful desk, a dresser, a frame for my bed, as well as a headboard, and a lovely living room. I couldn't be happier with the pieces that my volunteer and I picked out. She was so awesome and helped me a lot. I was very depressed and worried about how I was going to find the money to furnish my apartment. Surprisingly, my entire house was furnished by Furniture Share House. And she even loved the paintings. I mean, that's really making such a difference in someone's life, which is why I like talking about your dear wife, Kate, and this wonderful idea that she had 10 plus years ago. That's a very articulate letter.
Very articulate letter, and I think she has collections of these things in binders.
I bet.
Maybe, I don't know, 5,000 or 6,000 of them.
Wow.
And some are really well written, and some are less well written, and some are heartfelt, and some are because somebody's standing there is saying, better write that.
Well, it's nice
the
that
agency representatives.
Well, you know, we have so many problems in the world, which we will start discussing in a minute. So it always makes me feel good to remember that people are making a difference in our local community.
I will pass that along to Kate.
Good. So we have a plan now, I think. I'm proposing to you that once a quarter we read what the New York Times wrote. Wasn't it the day after Trump was elected?
It was.
They made a pledge, I believe.
They did.
And then, well, we could discuss whether they did anything.
At that time, we were subscribers to the New York Times. And we received a copy of this letter with our Sunday, as an insert in the Sunday.
Oh, I didn't get one. Wow, because I get the Sunday paper.
You didn't get it? Well,
no.
maybe
well, thank
people
you.
forgot. But it's surprising when I picked it up. But I want to read this. because there was a recent something or other out of the wild and weary, unhinged among us, who said, oh, here it is. This is a tweet from the Times communication team to Mr. Trump. He's the president. And they said, I'm reading what they said. False, we did not apologize, period. We stand by our coverage and thank our millions of subscribers, close quote. That is what the Times put out. This was on the 30th of March. Now, let me read you the apology that they're saying wasn't an apology. Speaking of fake news.
Yes, I was just going to say.
Just totally fake, made up. Ugh. Come on, people, grow up. Put on your big boy pants. To our readers, this is a letter from Arthur O. Sulzberger Jr., who's the publisher, and Dean Baquet, B-A-Q-U-E-T, who's the executive editor, on the New York Times masthead, letterhead. To our readers, when the biggest political story of the year reached a dramatic and unexpected climax late Tuesday night, our newsroom turned on a dime and did what it has done for nearly 2 years, cover the 2016 election with agility and creativity. Wow. Creativity, sure, that's where fake news originates, right there in the newsroom.
That's news.
After such an erratic and unpredictable election, just insert in there the little brackets that says, to those people who weren't listening, to those who were listening, it wasn't an unpredictable conclusion, close brackets. There are inevitable questions. Did Donald Trump's sheer unconventionality lead us and other news outlets to underestimate his support among American voters? No, the bubble around your head did. What forces and strains in America drove this divisive election and outcome? Wake up. Most important, how will a president who remains a largely enigmatic figure actually govern when he takes office? Well, for those who made no effort to learn what substance, if any, this individual had, it's a far cry, it seems to me, and quite a stretch to say, how will he actually govern? You made no effort to find that out because you live in a bubble where only Hillary existed and only the elite thinking was reflected in what you said and thought. But here's the next paragraph. As we reflect on this week's momentous result and the months of reporting and polling that preceded it, we aim to rededicate ourselves to the fundamental issue of Times journalism. Now, anybody who looked at their coverage for the last year before the election would have wondered what could be the fundamental objective of Times journalism. And you could only have one answer, which is to get Hillary Clinton elected president, irrespective of the fact that she's a terrible candidate, a miserable lying fool, and a person of incredible insensitivity and inability to relate to regular people. That was our task. But now we're going to redescribe our task. We're going to say, to rededicate ourselves to the fundamental mission of Times journalism. That is, says he, to report America and the world honestly.
That's why they have 7 negative Trump articles on the front page.
including that a 7-year-old child had a nightmare that Trump was going to get elected, which was a news article. 7-year-old scary dream about Trump. This was carried by the New York Times. The dream was that this child woke up and he had a nightmare that Trump was going to be elected. I know 7-year-olds never have nightmares, right? Never happens. But this was a particularly important nightmare that we all know about. We needed to know about it. That is to report.
That's the rededication?
No. This was during the election campaign.
Oh, okay.
That is to report America and the world honestly, without fear or favor, striving always to understand and reflect, ready for this, all political perspectives.
What?
And life experiences in the stories we bring to you. This is fake news, faking about the fake news that was the fake news. It is also to hold power to account.
Trump power, I think,
Impartially
not theirs.
and unflinchingly. Oh, no, it's not Clinton power, and certainly not Obama power.
Right.
The stories that these clowns missed about student loans, about the IRS, about the VA, why weren't they banging on this guy, Obama? Why weren't they just banging on him? Fix it. Not a damn thing. Never fired. I mean, it's outrageous. But I'm not going to be outraged because I'm going to say the Times thinks that their job is to understand and reflect all political perspectives and life experiences in the stories they bring to you. It is also to hold power to account impartially and unflinchingly. You lily-livered sapsuckers. We believe we reported on both candidates fairly during the presidential campaign. That's the problem. Their beliefs are so skewed that they have no idea. They don't even, where's the bubble around my head? I don't see a bubble around your head. You can rely on the New York Times to bring the same fairness.
Well, that we can
the
rely
same
on.
fairness. They will indeed bring the same fairness and the same level of scrutiny, 0 for some, enormous, ridiculous overplay for others. The same independence to our coverage of the new president and his team. We cannot deliver the independent, original journalism for which we are known without the loyalty of our subscribers. We want to take this opportunity on behalf of all Times journalists to thank you for that loyalty. Signed by Mr. Sulzberger and Mr. Baquet.
And so what is this that just came out again? Read that again. This was just a week ago?
Trump, the president, called this an apology. And the Times communication team tweeted back, "False, we did not apologize. We stand by our coverage and thank millions of subscribers." I think that what they wrote is absolutely correct. They did not apologize. The apology was given by the publisher and the executive editor of the newspaper. I am absolutely certain that their communication team is today just as miserable and biased and snotty elite as they were a year ago, and the year before that, and the year before that, and the year before that, and all years going back in time. I am absolutely confident that they would never apologize. They haven't got it in their bones.
They've never been wrong.
But they don't know that their publisher apologized. And if that isn't an apology, as we reflect, we aim to rededicate ourselves. We rededicate ourselves to the fundamental mission of Times journalism, which is now to be described, right? Because if you watched the Times over the preceding 6 months, you wouldn't have any idea what their mission was except to elect Hillary. And that is to report the world honestly. Wow. I hate to hang on individual words in a paragraph or a sentence.
Especially on a TV show.
Yeah, I know, but the word honest is such a powerful word. And when it comes from the mouth of a newspaper publisher, it's kind of scary, isn't it? Honesty? Wow, we'll do this honestly? What planet did he come from? He's going to do something honestly? He's a newspaper publisher. And of all the places in the world to be publishing a newspaper, it's in New York at the Old Gray Lady at the New York Times saying they will rededicate themselves to reporting honestly. His words, not mine, and certainly not the words of the Times communication team, whoever they are. Whatever elite universities they graduated from, whatever gold jewelry they have dripping from in their Mercedes that they drive around, whoever they are, they did not rededicate themselves. Only 2 people did, Mr. Sulzberger and Mr. Baquet. But I do think that it does help you read a little bit. It does help you understand a little bit about the way things work, the way the real world works when one group says this isn't an apology and the other group clearly wrote it to be an apology.
Right.
So what's happening there at the New York
no
Times?
Accountability.
Well, it's pretty bad. But anyway, I thought we'd have a little amusement with that.
You're so passionate about that. Maybe we should start talking about Cuomo. Sort of a really good segue, isn't it?
You mean the man who escaped indictment for bribery by the skin of his teeth? You mean that guy? His chief of staff is about to stand trial, and several people on the chief of staff's staff is about to stand trial for bribery. Plain old, outright bribery.
Down home bribery.
Yeah. But the governor knew nothing about it. The governor knew nothing about it, or the prosecutors settled for what they could get. And the governor sliced off his top advisor and the staff and said, here, you guys, we feed you to the sharks. And meantime, if you don't mind, I'll just get my galoshes and head out, my galoshes and my raincoat and head out the door in the other direction. Really?
But New York politics at its finest. You expected anything different?
No, I didn't actually. But I don't think that people actually understand. I think lately people have taken on this sort of religious attitude. If I think it, then it must be morally right. And if you think it and you don't agree with me, you must be morally wrong.
Yeah.
And I think that same kind of thinking, I believe, permeates the governor's, or the office of the governor. It's we can do no wrong, and we can do anything we want and get away with it. And that there's an organization, I don't know whether we've trumpeted this before, but there's an organization, I've gotten 2 mailers from them, very expensive by the way, it's like 6 color mailers, jeez Louise.
Very fancy.
Very fancy, right? An organization called Reclaim New York. And I'm going to put the 2 posters together so you don't have to look at me, but you can look at them, the 2 mailers.
Oh, they can see them. That's great.
All right?
Uh-huh.
One side here says, people are demanding change. Change begins with you. Government corruption in New York is a serious problem. Now, why would anybody say that in New York? We've had congressmen, we've had state senators, we've had state assemblymen, we had the leader of the Senate, the leader of the assembly, and the governor's office, people standing trial, people convicted, right? People headed off to jail, time served, more time. It's just a circus here in New York. It's like, I'm not going to say what it's like, but I got to say, I think that's interesting that they would say corruption is a serious matter here in New York, and here is somebody in handcuffs. Now, the head is not shown of this individual, so it could be the assembly leader, it could be the Senate majority leader, it could be any one of a number of assemblymen or state senators or people in the governor's office. I think it's interesting that no heads are shown on that side. On this side, however, they are more straightforward. And if you look, there's a blur for a bunch of faces, but then there's a bunch of faces that stand out. Guess who those people are? The very people we've been talking about, state senators, state assemblymen, and so on. Then, their other mailer, which I think is really cute, says, make your list, this must have been Christmas time.
Right.
Right? Make your list and check it twice. Time to find out who's been governor, state senator, assemblyman, town board, school board, naughty or nice.
They had fun with it.
I know. This holiday season, get the government you deserve, reclaim New York. So I think this thing's great. And the organization is www.reclaimnewyork, one run-on word, reclaimnewyork.org. And it's located somewhere on 5th Avenue in Manhattan.
I certainly hope they're thriving.
I mean, isn't this a great state?
I think it does show that we have to be active.
Who's at the table?
And I think that's half the problem. I mean, bringing it back to local things, we just had the village election. The
Right.
Beaver got the high vote count of 169,
That's 5 times the vote in last year's election.
5 times. But we got to 169.
Yeah. Pretty funny. I saw an email from somebody who said the mayor, Lorraine Walsh, had said that this was the highest number of votes ever in a village election. So I took the occasion to write an email back to the person who had written that email and said, I don't think so. I think that's a bit of an overstatement. Back in the day, say the early 1990s up through the mid-2000s, right? The number of people that we had voting in village elections was on the order of 18 or 1900 or 2000. The number of votes cast was, I don't know, what 1800, you had 2 trustees. You could cast your votes for you
Right.
and me, or you and you, or me
Right.
and you, and the number of people who voted was up along the 2,000 line.
Exactly.
And so, I mean, in fact, in the last mayoral election in 2006, there were 1,000 votes on, almost 1,000 votes on my side, and a little over 1,000 votes on the other side. So there were 1,900 voters in that one. So for somebody to say, and then the person writes back in the email to me and says, "Oh, I think I misspoke. I didn't mean this." She had a long list of people who were recipients. "I didn't mean in any village election. I meant in an uncontested village election." I said, "Well,
That's
just
something to be proud of.
I'm just pointing out there was we're not having a long discussion."
Sense.
But I think
Really,
what it's showing, unfortunately, is the disinterest in the village, because you're finding it, or I'm finding it, I don't know about you, but I'm finding it harder and harder to find any data or on any issues before the board decides to take action. And you don't even get to hear the big debate that the board has. And anyone who doesn't believe me, LMC-TV actually publishes the board, broadcasts the board meetings when they happen, and you can see what the board meetings are averaging about half an hour now, and not much
Right.
is actually done in a board meeting. They
no.
just announce what they want to pass, have the vote, and move on.
Yep.
There is no open debate. There is no discussion from the floor anymore. I mean, I realized that when I was on the board, people had a hard time sometimes saying the meetings would go to 11:30 at night. And the reason they went to 11:30 at night was they were definitely passionate affairs.
Yes.
We used to have 30 or 40 people discussing their issues, and it actually does make a difference. It actually
It does affect your thinking.
affects the thinking, affects the outcome. It forced decisions to be postponed, to have more data put onto them, because
Yep.
and it was good because it actually helped, I believe, get to better issues. And if you take a look at Larchmont as a microcosm, a lot of the issues in Larchmont are very, very local. To paraphrase News 12, hyper local. But they don't have national import, but they have direct import on what people want to have for them.
Right.
So I find it very, very disheartening when I see the lack of
Discussion.
Didn't you see the budget numbers for the first time in the
budget.
newspaper?
The first time I got to see the budget numbers.
Because you said you went to the
I
Larchmont
went-
Village website.
I went to the village website. I wanted to see the preliminary budget to actually see what our budget was going to look like and what's shaping up. And the first time I got to see the budget numbers.
So
and
there was nothing on the village website.
nothing.
Okay.
And what is supposed to happen, which is interesting, is you're supposed to post your proposed budget ahead of time. The village has stopped printing them, so you can't pick them up and for obvious reasons. Why print when we
Right.
now have technology to do it? But
Right.
I would expect to see the budget. We want to use technology. Put the preliminary budget on the web.
Exactly.
And then if I choose to print it, it's my paper.
Right.
But at least then I get to sit there and examine the budget and question it and understand what the changes were, because I can look at last year's budget, and
Is last year's budget posted?
the formal budget does get posted.
Well, it used to be, yeah, the formal budget that's passed, but
Passed.
it used to be, in the past, the booklet would have the last 5 years. You could see the figure. You could see
Exactly.
this year's authorized and actual projected, because you're only in month 11 of the year. And then you would have the actuals for the preceding
Previous 3 years.
three, 5, some number of years, so you
That
could
sounds
actually
handy.
look at the growth. Well, you could look at the growth that way. That's what Mike's talking about, is to see the year-to-year variations. But when Michael pointed that out, and just, what's the number say there? The village budget is $19 million? 19
It was
million.
8 million when we were.
No,
when
it was
$18,997,000.
$5,300,000 when we started. I still have
1991.
1991. I have every one of those years. It kind of takes up this much space, but I keep everything but a squirrel. and I have, so it's increased in 400%. If you think about it, 400% in the space of 26 years, 25 years.
Well, and then didn't you say, what was the increase? It was like over 4%?
4.37%.
For this
we
year.
have inflation
year.
of under 2%.
Yeah.
So that's more than double.
Yep.
And there are plenty of issues for it, but the issue that you have is it's not just what the costs are. What are we getting for those costs? Are the services what we expect, with the quality that we expect, in the manner that we expect? And if not, why not? And I think it's
If you call the police department, can you get a pizza picked up at Mickey's and brought over? No?
no.
I don't think that's what's expected.
What do you mean? Really? Have you been out and around lately and talked to any of the people who live around you?
Oh, well, there are some demanding people that have moved here.
Oh my goodness me! You know, why is there? How come the rain falls on my lawn, and on my street, and gives me these little rushes of things towards the storm sewer? How come?
They haven't figured that out?
Nobody's figured that out yet. How awful.
Because no one put the bubble up.
Yeah, the bubble's up.
You're right.
Trust me, the bubble's up.
But no, I do think it's important because you're discussing a microcosm, and we always hear these issues of shared services, change. To be able to affect change, I believe one of the biggest issues that we need to get to is debate.
Yes.
And I think one of the things that we are missing, both locally and even as you go further afield, is open, honest debate.
And that's a very good way to end this
Respectful.
program.
Open, honest, and respectful.
And respectful.
Yes, and respectful debate.
Got to be able to tolerate somebody else's views to the contrary, even if you are the most committed person ever. You've got to be able to do that. Otherwise, there's no point in having a discussion.
Right.
Because I'll tell you what I find is when you have a
We've
good...
got 8 seconds.
Next time.
Okay, no, but
All
it was
right.
a perfect ending. So thank you very much. Thank you to the talent on the other side of the cameras who
The
really
only
get the
talent
credit.
in the
The
room.
only talent.
The only talent in the room.
And I think you're going on a great vacation, so enjoy.
Yes, and we'll do the next show when you come back. How's
Yes,
that? Okay.
Works for me.
you can,
All right.
with a tan.
Maybe by then we can get a copy of the village budget.
Thanks so much.